world move beyond it and hopefully move forward successfully. It's the hope we all share for moving beyond the pandemic that led to the development of this STEM Meets the Challenge of the Pandemic outreach series and summit. It is the hope that is bringing so many of us together from across the STEM ecosystem in Minnesota and beyond for the next 2 days. During the next 2 days, you'll hear from leading STEM educators and professionals in fields from epidemiology to engineering, from computer science to logistics and beyond. You'll learn about the urgent work that STEM professionals are doing to meet the challenge of the pandemic and to do important work of lowering and even blasting through the barriers between their fields. You'll hear about how educators and students from middle school to college are using their creativity, their contacts, their skills, and their burning desire to make things better for their communities and to rapidly create and manufacture protective face shields and medical gowns. Together, we will explore how many of us are working in new ways that will help us better meet the challenges of the future and eliminate barriers now and for the next generation entering into the STEM workforce. Many of our sessions throughout the 2 days will be recorded. As we prepare for today's key sessions, the 3M keynote by 3M Senior Vice President for Health Human Sciences, Raymond Chow, and the Medtronic keynote by Kim Chaffin, I'd like to thank all of the sponsors who made today's summit and the entire STEM Meets the Pandemic, that meets the challenge of the pandemic project possible. It took a dedicated group of presenting sponsors, supporters, and contributors to make the project this summit possible. Thank you. And without encouragement from Michael Connor, Medtronic's Director of Strategy and Project Management, we might not have been able to get this project off the ground. Thank you, and thank you to the dynamic women that took this encouragement and turned it into a project and virtual summit, Katie Jameson and Beth Murphy. I'll now turn it over to them. Beth?
Thank you, Matt. Katie and I realized over a year ago that we would make a good team, and we really wanted to work together to make a difference in STEM education. And I'm excited today to see this project a reality. I wanted to take a moment to share another component of the STEM Meets the Challenge of the Pandemic project that's available on our website. And this is the Explore STEM Careers webpage. As you know, the pandemic made it harder for students to learn about career opportunities. And this Explore STEM Careers webpage was designed to address that. We interviewed 25 STEM professionals who volunteered their time to share their stories so that we could create these videos. And there's pictures of just a few of them featured on the left side of the slide. They talked about their careers, what their lives are like, what their passions are, and also about how the work that they do has pivoted and changed and the types of problems that they were asked to solve as a result of the pandemic. We also include ideas for educators about how to use these videos with students. And we see this as an opportunity for a sort of virtual mentoring that, that students are able to participate in, given that they can't have STEM professionals coming into their classrooms as they're used to doing, or in some cases even participate in internships anymore. Many of these professionals are available also to virtually visit classrooms and after school programs. And there's a way to sign up for to do that on the website. We also had the opportunity to work with 2 college student interns as part of this project to create these interviews and also produce the videos. So it was pretty exciting to do that. The website is down at the bottom here, and we really encourage you to take a look. Go on to the next slide. The other piece I wanted to share is that we do have a blog associated with this project, and we invite all of you to submit your ideas for contributing to this, as well as to read what's posted there and respond. We want this to continue to be a dialogue well beyond today. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for your support, and I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Great, thank you, Beth. Yes, as she noted, we have just been honored to get to work together to serve our STEM community during this very different, very challenging school year. And quite honestly, I've been amazed at what we've been able to pull together with a fabulous team of colleagues who have contributed to this. their ideas, their connections, the people who took time to be part of the videos, and all of you who are joining us today for this summit and our speakers and panelists throughout the next 2 days. It was our goal to bring together the STEM community in a way that we haven't been able to gather for quite a while. So we are pleased to have you with us, and hope that you will make some new connections over the next 2 days, learn something new, get some new ideas to bring back to your corner of our STEM ecosystem. So thank you for being here, and enjoy. I have a couple things to share about the project here. Earlier this winter, I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Mike Ulsterholm as part of the project. I encourage you to visit the stemleadstheway.org website. There is a full video about his journey into STEM that's about 8 minutes long. But before we get started here, wanted to share with you just a quick, brief piece of it where I asked him what he would share with students who are considering STEM.
Sometimes people are intimidated by the concept of being involved with STEM. They feel like, oh, it's too difficult. I can't understand it. I won't know what to do. How do I compete? Don't let that happen. Let yourself try it. Get involved. And it may not be one element of science that, for example, is your forte, but another area might be one. The person who is out working in the field with wildlife, tracking down moose, working on that, they're very different than the person who is in the laboratory dealing with viruses and bacteria. Surely their subjects are different size, but when that virus or that bacteria kills the moose, or even infects humans, suddenly that laboratory and that virus and that bacteria that scientist has been working on, they all come together. They all are part of the team. And so I would just urge you to see the fact that if you're involved with STEM, you'll never be alone. You'll never by yourself basically have to solve all the problems of the world, but you'll also have an opportunity to do great personal things that could, in fact, very well change the world with just one discovery. So please get involved.
I thought that was a great message to kick off our 2-day summit here. This is just a brief overview of our schedule. I know many of you will need to come and go throughout the 2 days, so please do join any of the sessions that work within your schedule. It is on the STEM Leads the Way website if you'd like to reference when the sessions are starting and when we have breaks in our schedule. And I'd like to take a minute to thank my colleagues who have helped either consult on this project or our volunteer advisor team. We had a collaborative task force of STEM professionals, of our nonprofit leaders, our educators, and this wouldn't have happened without their involvement. So thank you to each of you and to the sponsors who have made this project possible. And an extra special shout out, I guess, to Bolton and Mink. They donated some time volunteer-wise to help us build the website. So thank you. And now I would like to invite Chuck Clanton, the president of our foundation, to say a quick hello.
Hello. Is that good enough? Thanks, Katie.
Yes, it's good enough, Chuck.
We're the 503c part of the Engineering Alliance here, and our primary purpose or mission statement is to deal with higher education scholarship and K-12 STEM programs. So this fits right within our mission statement here of the foundation. Also, I'd like to thank the three major contributors, instigators here, Medtronic, 3M, and Bolton and Mink. So when you're out shopping around in that big box store looking for pacemakers or medical devices, just think of Medtronics and help support them, and maybe pick up a few rolls of the Scotch tape from 3M. Nothing better to hold that pacemaker in place there. And then as you drive to and from that big box store, Boltman and Mink, they're in the background. They deal with public infrastructure projects. So they're dealing with the roads and the bridges and the water and the wastewater treatment there. Then there are some other supporters and contributors that we need to thank too, from engineering consulting firms to manufacturers to educational institutions and private clubs there that support all this STEM programs. And then I guess finally, I'd like to really thank Katie and Beth for this. Katie runs her private Engage, which is a consulting firm for building nonprofit communities. And then Beth, she's a consultant in STEM education. So a big thanks to Katie and Beth to pull this off here. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Katie.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for all your support with this project.
The pandemic changed the way they work overnight. And so workers had to learn new skills and change the way they do business. As we begin moving beyond the pandemic, what changes will we choose to keep? What new skills will STEM employers value? So we'll talk about that and more during today's panel.
I'm going to introduce our three panelists, and they will share a brief overview of their approach to what's ahead for the STEM workforce. And then we'll open it up to question and answers and a general discussion on the future STEM workforce. Our first panelist today is Tom Lawrence, PE. Tom is the president of the US and Canadian operations for EDOM. EDOM is a global engineering and consulting company with more than 3,800 professionals and 45 offices around the world, headquartered in Bilbao, Spain. Tom's area of expertise is the design and evaluation of complex structures in the fields of oil and gas, structures in power generation, manufacturing, science, and astronomy. For our attendees today, who are not professional engineers or PEs, PEs are engineers licensed by a state board to practice engineering. The PE license is the engineering profession's highest standard of competence, and the license is only available to people who complete stringent coursework and examination after at least 4 years working in the engineering field.
Also joining us on today's panel is Brett Weiss. Brett is a professional engineer and president and CEO of WSB, a design and consulting firm specializing in engineering, community planning, environmental, and construction services. Brett's passion extends beyond his industry into the broader business community through his role on the Minnesota Chamber Board of Directors, the Minnesota Chamber Foundation, and to the arts by serving on the Hennepin Theater Trust Board of Directors. Brett and WSB are committed toward improving industry diversity, and he believes that a strong culture drives results. Brett inspires his team to discover thoughtful and creative solutions to infrastructure change challenges, and will be sharing with us about WSB's Opportunity Plus training program.
We also want to welcome Wilson Garland, Executive Director of the Minnesota State IT Center of Excellence. Over the last 5 years, Wilson has led the center in its efforts to build and support the IT workforce in Minnesota by expanding interest and access among students, enhancing tech education across the state, and engaging the tech employers to ensure that Minnesota State graduates match their talent needs. Prior to joining the Minnesota State, he spent over a dozen years in various other higher education leadership roles and co-founded a mobile learning software company.
We will begin our panel with each of our presenters sharing some background on what skills, needs, and expertise they see emerging as we move through the pandemic, and how businesses are evolving to meet important STEM workforce and diversity and inclusion needs. What are both employers and employees valuing after the pandemic? So first, our presenters will each give their overview, and then we will open for questions, answers, and discussion. So please welcome Tom, who will share his experience on behalf of EDOM, a global employer.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to participate today. First and foremost, at EDOM, when we think about STEM candidates or candidates to add to our group, we look for people who we believe will share our values and who can demonstrate consistency with those values in their decisions and in their actions, and most importantly, in the way they work with others. At EDOM, those values to us, the most important ones, are excellence, innovation, and commitment. You know, we're in a technical field. We obviously look for people who have excellent technical skills and can become self-directed or continuous learners. who are adaptable to change. We want people to take responsibility for their work. We want people to produce results, all those things. But too often, individuals in engineering and science fields are stereotyped as having a sole focus on technical skills and abilities. And sometimes they're seen as lacking in having people skills, or what are known as soft skills. However, soft skills are really important in almost all roles in all industries. And I realize that while one of the focus points of this panel discussion is how to explore skills valued by STEM employers and how they've changed as a result of the pandemic, I'm convinced that at EDOM we value the same skills as we have before. But what the pandemic has really reinforced is just how critical these interpersonal skills are. So in addition to the basic technical skills, I'd like to just mention a couple of soft skills that we value on future employees. You know, one of the first things is curiosity and ability to ask questions. Asking the right questions is really a key component in the design and problem-solving process. It's a skill that helps us understand our customers and each other. And as drivers of solutions, we need the ability to ask questions, to define and validate our assumptions, to understand expected outcomes, and then propose ideas, test solutions, and make decisions based on that available information. But those curiosity and inquiry skills are really important. Next, communication skills. You cannot overestimate the importance of communication skills. You could be a rock star in your technical field, but you will be at a major disadvantage as an employee if you are not able to communicate your ideas effectively. Students hopefully learn to communicate complex ideas in a variety of methods, a variety of communication skills, and to people of varied backgrounds, including people who have less or more technical experience than they do. So today's engineers need to be highly, highly competent in all kinds of communication skills, verbal, written, and graphic communication. In a related skill set, collaboration and teamworking. No employee is an island, unless you're a sole proprietor, but even then you have to work with someone if you want to have a customer. So it's critical that engineers develop the skills that they need to be team members who can work with others toward a shared goal. And one of the most important aspects of collaborating well is being open and accepting new ideas. We talked about communicating, active listening, taking feedback, taking responsibility, engaging and respecting the diversity of colleagues and clients. That collaboration and teamworking part, the skill set is just critical. The pandemic has really shown us that adaptability and flexibility are a couple skills that are also crucial in success. They're difficult to teach. We value employees that are successfully able to manage change in the workplace. And the more adaptable and flexible you are, the more productive you'll typically be. Your ability to handle change with ease frees up time that you might normally spend being stressed out when a new challenge is presented. So being adaptable, being flexible, it shows your resourcefulness. It can be a way to demonstrate leadership skills, analytical skills, and more. So adapting well to change comes with practice and experience, but it also requires a positive mindset and attitude. And finally, the last soft skill that I'll just mention today is that in our business, we're convinced that immediately after public safety, our customer needs are the priority. So we want individuals that have the skill to have a service mindset. We use active listening to understand what the client needs. We encourage our people to do what it takes to satisfy the customer and deliver a positive experience while designing solutions that help our customers be successful. That kind of goal is typically only achieved when an individual, though, can really identify with and adopt service mindset. So those are 5 kind of soft skills that that we think are really a key to success and have been highlighted in the pandemic. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. I now welcome Brett, who will share with us about WSB's Opportunity Plus program.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. And it's good to hear you, Tom. It's been a while since we served on the advisory board together, but if things don't work out for me here at WSB, I think I'm going to give you a call because I think I can fit most of those criteria that you just laid out there. But the one I want to highlight before I get into Opportunity Plus is curiosity. I love that you talk about that. We like to tell our staff that we don't need you to be innovative because that's a heavy lift. But if you're curious, you will drive innovation. And so I think those were some really great suggestions that you had there. So I want to talk a little bit about our Opportunity Plus program, and this gets at the part of the presentation about what we're doing to try to get more people into STEM careers. And in our case, I think all of you know that our industry is really lacking in, well, it's dominated by men and primarily white men, certainly in Minnesota. Some of our other office locations, we have a better chance at hiring people of color, for sure. But we saw this problem, and what I saw as a problem was the lack of role models. And I think when we go into schools, and I think our industry does a great job of going into schools and talking to kids, but at the end of the day, they look at me and say, you don't look like me. Why would I go into your industry, right? Why am I going to listen to you? And I think that we don't really put enough appreciation on the fact that you need to have somebody from a community that's going to encourage you to do something. And I think if we look at our careers, I had a brother that was going into civil engineering. I had a grandfather who worked as a general superintendent. So I had some exposure to engineering, which is what got me into this. There are many communities that there is no introduction to that. So what we decided to do at WSB, we have a really large construction program. We're a little bit unique in the fact that we do materials testing and geotech work. And for many of those positions, in addition to surveying, we are hiring people and training them. And so we decided that if we can hire people from the communities that we live in, we can certainly reach out and start adding some diversity to our construction program. And I think those of you that are aware of the construction side, there are very few women, and certainly in our industry as a whole, very few people of color. In fact, I think less than 5% technicians are people of color. So we worked on putting a program together that basically trains the building blocks of civil engineering. So we have used our staff, who in Minnesota are not as busy in the wintertime, and we developed a program to take students to our lab, teach them about how to read a set of plans and how to do simple calculations and how to measure and what different soil conditions are. And then the last part of it is training them on survey skills. The idea is not to produce somebody that has a full set of skills that can walk into a job and really understand how to do it, but it's to give them those building blocks so that they can go to an organization and they can continue to build their career. And what we think is great about our industry is that while these jobs may start paying at $18 to $22 an hour, they have a chance to continue to grow those jobs to $25 to $30 to $40 an hour with full benefits. And so for many of the students that we have, we thought we might get kids out of high school, and we reach out to a lot of the community-based organizations to help us find students for this program. And we thought we'd get younger individuals. And what we're finding is we're finding people that have jobs already. And you might ask, well, why not just send them to a community college or to a tech school? And the reason is those are very expensive. And many of these students don't have the ability to pay for those opportunities. Secondly, most of them are working during the day, right? They're either immigrants that are sending money back to their families where in the countries that they came from, or they're people with families that can't afford to take the time off to go to school in addition to just paying for it. And so we think we found a little bit of a sweet spot of individuals that are putting in at least 120 hours worth of time. They do it 3 days a week for 4 months, from 5:30 to 8:30 at night. And so, to Tom's point, what we're finding is individuals that are committed, right? And so, when you want to find staff members, and I think Tom talked about it, you need people that are committed, that are excited, that want to come to work and want to learn new things. Every one of the individuals that we have put through this program so far has appreciated the opportunity. WSB, COVID hit us and caused a few issues for that, especially for the hiring portion of it. But WSB has now hired 6 in the last 2 years of these candidates. Our goal is to have them be role models, reach back into the communities that they live in, and encourage them to come into our industry and go through this program. As we expand the model, we intend to graduate about 15 individuals a year. And then we're looking for hiring partners from other consulting firms, from contractors, from the DOT. MnDOT is talking to us about the program, would like to hire some staff. Biggest challenge we have is HR programs and getting them in. But we see there's a huge opportunity. And what we're finding then is a lot of passion. And then these individuals are going back and they are now the role models for young students to consider careers in STEM. And so we've been really proud of what has happened so far. We think that I would tell you the most interesting thing that we found is that we have had underemployed individuals applying for our program. And what I mean by underemployed, it's individuals who have degrees from other countries, and they come to the United States as immigrants, and we won't certify them to work in that field or be able to get a job. And so we have uncovered a lot of these underemployed individuals who are really excited about the opportunity to work in the field that they studied. And so they're very passionate. And so that's a new focus that I have, and that I'm also working with the Minnesota Chamber on, is to try to uncover those underemployed individuals and hopefully bring more immigrants into the state with these higher level degrees that our industry can start to put to work and open doors for bringing more diversity into our industry. Thank you.
All right, let's now welcome Wilson, who will share with us from in IT and tech.
Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you about what's going on in computers and information technology. I was encouraged to hear what Tom started out with, and Brett certainly echoed it. One of the things that we hear a lot from the employers that we work with is that they expect people to come out of a technology program with the technical skills, but what often they see that they need is the non-technical skills. And so I was going to talk a lot about that today, but I will just sort of add on to what Tom said in sort of enumerating the the different non-technical or soft skills that are important, and just say that really when it comes down to it, so many of the technology roles today involve teams, they involve collaboration, they involve communications, both oral and written communications, showing initiative and curiosity and all of those different skills, critical thinking, creative problem solving, those sorts of things. And I would certainly encourage anybody who's interested in a career in technology to be looking for opportunities, not just to learn those skills, but also to practice those skills and really be ready to talk about those skills when you're looking for a position. And so that's something that we really advocate for people that are looking to get into an IT or a computer science type career. But with that said, I think today the topic is sort of what has changed with the pandemic and what sort of trends do we see coming out of the pandemic. And let me see if I can share a slide here that I put together. one of the things that I would say about the pandemic itself, and certainly evidence of it, is the fact that we're meeting online and in a Zoom conference today. And that is that in many ways, the pandemic has forced us to be online when there are a lot of things that we used to not do online. And in many ways, it has accelerated a lot of the trends that we saw in information technology and technology as a whole that really impact not just how we live our lives, but also the sorts of jobs and careers that there are and the types of skills that people need. So just a few examples. You know, if you think about what's happened with the pandemic, it's driven everybody, including mom and pop restaurants and everybody else, to be concerned about how they and their organizations show up online. Really, that focus on the digital customer experience is something that all companies are interested in, and all companies need employees who really understand how to portray a company and really set up operations online. And a lot of that work happens in agile team-based environments, and really there's all sorts of opportunities to practice, again, collaboration and teamwork, as well as some of the more technical skills related to agile software development and other things that relate to that. Artificial intelligence is also changing the way that companies relate to their customers. It's also changing the way that they relate to their employees. And if you're not familiar with artificial intelligence, it's sort of how computers are programmed to make decisions that would otherwise require human intervention. And there's all sorts of examples, even just how Amazon recommends certain things for you based on what you've already purchased and other things like that. That sort of thing is happening all over the place. And when you apply for jobs, your resume is first going through some sort of automatic screen that's making sure that you have the basic requirements and so on met. So artificial intelligence just means that if you're looking for a position, if you have some experience in data analysis, data science and other things, those are skills that are very important in the future of technology. In a similar way, a lot of people have experience with the Internet of Things, and that's a fancy way of saying that our devices around the home, around the office, other things now are talking to the internet and getting instructions from us either through our mobile devices or through other means. And if you have an Alexa in your home, you understand what I'm talking about. So in any case, all sorts of new job opportunities are coming open and how to make those communications happen. And so those are different skills that people should be looking at when they're interested in a field in technology. Also, along with that, the connectedness of our world means that there are increasing challenges in areas of cybersecurity and information security. And cybersecurity as a whole is probably one of the fastest growing fields within IT and within computer science. And certainly there are advanced courses and advanced certifications that you can get in cybersecurity, but there are a lot of different entry-level roles that are a great place to start if you're interested in cybersecurity, starting off in a networking course or training program. And there's a lot of those programs that are free or very low cost if you're interested in getting into that kind of a career. And then obviously everything is moving now to the cloud, where it used to be, in the basement of a building, you'd have a bunch of servers, but now most organizations either have a hybrid environment or they've moved 100% of their operations to a cloud infrastructure environment. And that changes the nature of or it doesn't change the nature of the work, but it changes the specifics of the work in terms of how people administer systems and networks and databases and all of those sorts of things. So those are some of the trends in technology and sort of the impact that they have on the sorts of interests and skills that people have. But I would echo what was said earlier, both by Brett and Tom. Very often when you're looking for a career in one of these fields, when you get to the company, they'll train you on the specific technology that they want you to have. But if you walk in the door with curiosity, you walk in the door with a lot of these non-technical skills and can demonstrate those through past experience,
that's really going to be the right first step.
If I could just jump in, if you don't mind. So Wilson talked about, I'm getting feedback for some reason. Hopefully you guys aren't, but Wilson talked a little bit about using artificial intelligence for screening candidates. And I would just say that that's one of the biggest challenges right now that we have for finding some of the people of color or from underrepresented communities. They may not have exactly the right skills, and these artificial intelligence programs are kicking them out, which is causing people not to be able to find them. So I would just encourage you, if you're involved with your HR teams, make sure, because those are very useful and they make it nice for your HR teams, but they do kick out a lot of candidates that might otherwise be good candidates that are from those different populations.
That's Brett, that's an excellent point. And I think one of the things that we emphasize in our artificial intelligence programs is that, ultimately it's not the computer making the decision, it's how those systems get programmed. And I think one of the things that we feel strongly about and emphasize is not just ethics, but also how do we make our artificial intelligence systems more inclusive and not prone to that sort of bias potentially. So, and that's one of the core things I think that as artificial intelligence becomes more pervasive in our economy and our society, it's another reason why we need more people to really focus in on some of those skills and some of those factors that go into how we make sure that computers are working for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Tom, Brett, and Wilson. We're now going to be open for question and discussion. I know I saw a couple or one come in through the chat. If you have any questions, please send them in and then we'll read them out to our panelists. So I guess the first question we have is, what gaps do we have in STEM today in Minnesota, and what are we doing to eliminate or reduce those gaps?
I don't know if I'm perfectly qualified to answer this, but I will tell you that not just in STEM, but in education in general, people think Minnesota is really strong on education. We are the worst in the nation for minority populations, college readiness. And so we are doing terrible in that regard. And it's something that I would say that would tie into STEM as well. I think in some of the more affluent school districts, we're probably doing great from a STEM standpoint, but there's a huge learning gap in Minnesota, and people don't believe it when I tell them this, but if you go to the Minnesota Chamber website, you can see the results. If we're not last, we're second to last in the learning gap, and that's something that we need to fix first, both for our state as well as if we want to get more kids into STEM.
I agree completely, and I agree completely with Brett. That's one of the areas that I think is from locally from Minnesota. It's a shame. We have the gap between the top and the bottom is just so wide, and it's great that we should celebrate the fact that many of our schools are doing a great job on STEM education, and we've got some fantastic students coming out of the universities and education system right now, but you cannot deny the fact that there's a gap, and it's not an average that's coming out. It's less than the 95th percentile. And I say, and then from a gap standpoint, we're seeing when we're looking for employees, and we are recruiting heavily right now. We are having a hard time finding a diverse and adding women to the staff. We're just not getting a diverse candidate pool. We're looking, but we're not getting it.
One of the, just to echo what you guys said, somebody else had a comment that they see gaps in after school opportunities for students of color, low income students, and students in rural areas, as well as girls that are also underrepresented in the STEM after school. They have it sounds like this program has team scholarships available, but they have a challenge to get the word out for those scholarships.
Yeah, and I would just echo that. And I think that one of the things the pandemic has taught us, and certainly we're trying to take advantage of at the IT Center of Excellence, is by offering some of those programs remotely, it helps us to expand the reach throughout Minnesota and get participation more broadly. I would say just in terms of overall gaps, and it kind of builds on what Tom and Brett just said, but I think when you look at overall, and I know some of my friends from the Department of Education are here on the call, but I look at one of the big gaps in technology in particular is that there really are no state standards at the high school level related to computer science and technology and other things. And I know there's a lot of people thinking about that and working on that, but I think the more that we can encourage students and even the school districts to include some of the basic technology courses in their curriculum, and even embed technology within some of the courses that are not considered technology courses, or science or math courses even, the better off we'll be in terms of preparing people for the workforce.
Yeah, to follow up on, we had another question about how we actually do that and bridge the gap. More investments from the total state perspective, starting with legislature. We used to be the education state. I don't know if anybody can speak to that.
Well, I do see on that, talking about the Page and Kashkari amendment, and the chamber board has been in favor of that, depending on what it looks like. If it stays the way that it is, the chamber would be in favor of it, and I would too. I think the challenge with that is that basically what it does is it takes the decisions out of the legislature, and the courts can force the legislature to make changes and address the gap that exists today. And so I do think, while I don't like things being in the court system, I do think that if that's what it's going to take to get the legislature to do something, then I think that's a positive thing. But you know, I think that's what we're trying to do with our program, is to create role models. And you know, Tom's right. It's hard to find. You know, I think women in our industry is, and maybe you guys can speak to that, but the challenge that we have is not so much women going into it, although there's less than men, but it's keeping them in our industry. There is a MnDOT has done a study that they have stayed at the same percentage of women at MnDOT over the last 20 years. It hasn't changed. And so there is something going on that we need to get at from that regard as well, and find out why women are not staying in this profession. And it's something that we need, you know, you two women that are moderating today to help figure that out, and to raise your voices and say, and not just disappear, but say, these are the issues that we have. As far as creating these role models, to me, Tom, I think that's what's going to help us open up opportunities with these communities to see that there are jobs and professions, you know, that could be here. I just don't think there's enough role models out there today to make that happen. So it won't be a quick process for us, but we hope over time that we will become much more like the communities that we serve.
So I can't necessarily speak for the engineering fields as much as for the computer and technology fields within Minnesota, but I would say there are a lot of programs out there seeking to narrow the gaps. You know, there's an organization called Minnesota STEM Partnership that is actively working in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and High Tech Kids for robotics and other programs that are out there, both, you know, in the curriculum in schools as well as extracurricular activities. I think one of the biggest needs, though, that we have, and we work with a lot of those programs to try and support what they're doing and build the pipeline of students interested in IT and technology as a career. But I would echo what you're saying, Brett, which is about the role models. And I think the more that we can engage with industry and the companies where you know, they have this as a long-term talent goal, and that's great. But if they can work with us in the schools and in the after-school activities and in the other places, both in terms of just people power at those events and so on, but also dollars. You know, for often we just need a small amount of money to put on an event or to create a program or a competition or other things like that. And while we get a lot of money, from the state, it's limited in terms of what we really need to be able to have that broader impact. So I would certainly encourage all of you and in your own companies and organizations to reach down and be part of some of these grassroots programs to sort of change the way that people think about all of our careers as a stepping off point for where they can go in their careers.
Yeah, and I would just add real quickly, to me, this is, the words are changing all the time. It's more about equity than it is about diversity, right? Because that says that, that says something about who is the dominant and who's the lesser. And so we don't even use diversity very much anymore. But what I will tell you is, for me, this is a workforce issue. And so the program that we're doing is not a diversity program. It is a workforce program because we need to find more individuals to work in our industry. And we need to have a broad population serving that have all of the communities that we serve as a part of our organization. So to me, I think when you think about any of these women and people of color, it's more of a workforce issue than it is anything else.
Yeah, I guess to go with that, myself and Kelsey were asked to say what made a difference for us to choose our career paths. Kelsey, I don't know if you want to start. I should start.
Sure. So when I was in high school, the Johnson Senior High School is where I went to. When we started, they kind of had a program where if you live within a certain distance from the school, you get bus transportation, but then they put you into certain predetermined programs. And so me and my sister, at the time, we were put into the engineering program, and so kind of went along. Sorry, that was my cat. And so me and my sister, we kind of went along that path of STEM related courses, and I got an opportunity to join an organization, and they really pushed or just encouraged us to follow this STEM path. And so it wasn't like, so it was true that there wasn't really many role models, or at least for me, being a woman and a minority, to look up to and say, oh, this is what I want to do too. But the coaches that I had at the time, they really encouraged and inspired me to follow this path and just do something different, that even though there are no role models, that I could become one of the role models to encourage new girls coming into the field too.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case for a lot of women in engineering, that we get thrown into something and then that's where we end up because we like it or other reasons. I was in a pretty unique situation, or lucky that I was, that both my parents are civil engineers. So I kind of had the ultimate role model, my own mom. But I swore I would never be a civil engineer because I saw the headaches, I saw everything that they dealt with. And then, but at the same time, I grew up around it and eventually ended up in civil doing construction, which is the farthest thing from what anybody expected. I'm very soft-spoken. I don't make a stance. I stay out of the way. But I think I never knew anything different. So that's where I ended up. Not a super exciting story, but moving on to the next question. Related to STEM in rural areas, this person is living in a small farming community now, but is from Minneapolis. They asked if you could speak to what seems like an overlooked area of agricultural opportunities in STEM, especially in educating urban students in agricultural related STEM jobs.
I think you got crickets on that one.
Well, there's actually, within agriculture, there are a lot of areas that technology is becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, certainly, something that we talk a lot about is sort of drone imaging and, other things like that as it relates to crops. There's certainly a lot of there's a lot more data that happens when it relates to harvesting and planting and planning and all of those sorts of things, as well as a lot more technology in food production. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in that sort of field or what's happening in that area. I'm from the Minnesota State IT Center of Excellence, but there's also two centers of excellence in agriculture, also within Minnesota State, and they not only highlight career opportunities in agriculture specifically, but also we cooperate with them as it relates to opportunities for technologists in agriculture. And many of those opportunities aren't just in the urban areas. Those obviously relate to all over Minnesota. And there's a Center of Excellence for Agriculture in the north and a Center of Excellence for Agriculture in the south, and they have programs throughout the state.
From my just on the agricultural question, I'm not an agricultural specialist, but I do know that Minnesota, we have personally, we have several great companies in the state from the agricultural standpoint that hire a lot of people in STEM fields. Cargill is one of the biggest companies in the world, and they hire a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists. We have food in the food sector. So we have customers that are in the agricultural sector, Cargill and other in the food industry. And many of those positions for people that are interested in our food supply, there's many STEM opportunities in those fields and with employers in this region.
Yeah, to go along with that, just from a civil perspective, Cargill actually does hire civil engineers to put up their processing plants around the country. And every year for any women in engineering, they host a Women in Engineering in STEM panelist or dinner in February. So there are a lot of agricultural opportunities. There's also agricultural engineering that many people out in more rural areas will go into, as farming has a lot to do with civil engineering nowadays. I mean, when you think about creating the foundation for a grain bin or the software for IT that goes into a tractor, I mean, most of those are run by on automated now. So there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of overlap, but it's just how to notify people, I don't know, and how to get the word out. So I think I don't see any other questions, but I think we had a really good presentation and discussion. Does anybody have anything else?
Thanks for having us. I think it's a great conversation. So I always appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts on this important topic. So thanks to you for reaching out to us.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Wilson. Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you.
If there's nothing else, I guess I would just like to thank you and everyone for joining us for our opening sessions today. We will reconvene at 1 p.m. for our afternoon keynote with Medtronic.
And during our break, we invite you to visit the main event in Canopy, where you can chat with other attendees, view video on-demand content, have a meeting with other attendees, visit the sponsor page and more. And then at 1 p.m., just click the session for the Medtronic keynote to join the meeting. Thanks, everybody.